Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Now, we could describe Kevin Soyer as a program assistant at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, but there's so much more to him than his day job, than his disability, or what he does outside of UTT. We're having this conversation on World Joke Day, but it's so much more than haha geep geep. Looking forward to it. Mr. Soyer, how you do, sir?
I'm great. Happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy to be having this conversation. And the thing is, we are having this conversation coming out of, for the most part, of weather system that was really interesting, to say the least. What are some of the things that would have been going through your head? Because I know sometimes people who are organizing may have oversight some ways if there isn't a fully inclusive process.
Oh, wow. I think people were really concerned about me. Friends and family have been checking in constantly and that kind of thing. I have been pretty optimistic that I'm going to be okay. So I've just been taking the relative precautions and that kind of thing. But I haven't been too worried. I've been very cautious and being proactive. And yeah, hopefully the relevant authorities have things in place for all sorts of persons. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. And with that, let's get into the journey of where you are. This is as an comedian, actor, writer, poet. Thank you. What were some of those initial steps?
Oh yeah, performing has always been something that I've been very passionate about. What I'm most known for is comedy. And how I got into comedy was that, kind of by chance. I mean, my family, if my family and friends tell it, I've always been a comedian, But as far as performing, I would have started making videos online, trying to be kind of educational kind of videos regarding persons with disabilities and issues that we face, trying to putting a kind of comedic spin on it. And then I would have, transitioned into making other videos that were just kind of sketch comedy online, just give people some laughs and entertainment. And from that, I would have been invited on television to do stand-up comedy for the first time. And I went on CNG3. And I performed a 5-minute set and it went really well. And from there, I got, invited to other open mics and to perform, as part of a cast, and it just snowballed from there. Just been more and more opportunities, within comedy. And as far as acting and the other performing arts, well, I did a theater minor as part of my degree. I have a communications degree, but I did a theater minor. So as part of the Department for Creative and Festival Arts at UE, which I really, really love and really happy to be alum of. I would have been in student productions. And, persons would have seen me in the student productions and casted me outside, so I got to be in other productions, musical theater and stuff like that. And I've just seized all the opportunities that kind of came my way for different aspects of the performing arts, whether it's writing, whether it's spoken word, whatever. I just kind of seize them and do as much as I can with what I have.
I want to talk about seizing that opportunity in just a bit, but you talking and I thinking, but this man, lucky boy. People say if you go back, family members will say he was always a comedian. I think if people go back, they'll say that I was always a clown. So I don't know how it is you make that distinction. But
right.
But in terms of using what it is you have while reaching forward, it feels as though that took on even more meaning around 2018. Let me know a little bit about that, Taz.
Yeah, so in my second year of university, I was a regular student pursuing my studies. And one day I just felt this tingling in my legs, kind of ignored it. I was also feeling a bit sick. I went to the health center, there was a lot of back and forth and stuff, but couldn't really pinpoint what it was. And I had a quick deterioration over the next week where I became paralyzed from my neck down, couldn't move anything but my eyes. I ended up hospitalized for 1 year and 3 months, and it turns out that I had a rare spinal illness. And so everything changed at that point. Everything changed. I couldn't move anything, couldn't do anything. And fortunately, I had, you couldn't be prepared for things like these, but I was definitely equipped in that I was born into a support system, my family that were really by my side and were there, my grandparents were there almost every day, just bringing so much vibrance. And that's the thing, a lot of how I navigate life is with humor. And that comes from the family I come from too, because they didn't just come and like mope around in the hospital. They would come like a burst of light into the ward. And my grandmother would be like, oh gosh, go to bed, let me sit down now, gosh, move around, that kind of thing, even though I couldn't move anything. My uncle would be like, all this you're for work, come on, Kevin. Like there was no moping and that kind of thing. They just, so we navigated it that way. And once I rehabilitated and was in my process of reintegrating into society, I decided that I wanted to be of use, because during that journey, about a year and 3 months, whether it's nurses, doctors, other support staff, family, friends, so many people were pouring into me and contributing to me, helping me make it. And I wanted to be of use myself. And I decided that, I wanted to do that by entertaining people. I wanted to entertain, uplift, and educate people with use of my talents. So, going back out to work and regaining my independence, going back to school and pursuing theater arts further. The end goal was always being in a position where I could, make a positive contribution to society. And yeah, just as you said, it took on a lot more meaning at that point,
I think that's something that you're doing, and it makes me want to ask the question, because many times you hear a calypsonian, you hear entertainer, or somebody who is bringing an energy to you on stage. And a lot of what is involved is being able to look at the same thing that everybody looks at and see it a little differently. And bring
right.
us across, so you'll be like, hey. So, and I cannot remember, I think somebody was telling me that you just went into the zone of looking at people and taking on and being able to tell stories, looking at the same thing that everybody's seeing and seeing it a little differently. But there's a level of intellect that is immediately apparent, at least to me, when I listen to some of the things that you were going on, and how it is you're able to take this thing that everybody talking about in one way and then turn it.
Right.
For instance, charity begins at home.
Oh my gosh.
You understand?
Right. Yes.
So
Yes.
how much of that is craft? How much of that is natural? How much of that is something that you work on and hone that skill and that talent?
I am in a good position to answer this question now, having worked with comedians for like the last 6 years intimately and seeing the workings of how their minds work, and other performers as well, because, there would be theater and playwriting and different types of writing. But I think a part of it is innate. I have an innate ability to observe, to mimic, to, look at a person, look at just not see an archetype, but see somebody and situations as well from different angles, and have a appreciation of nuance and that kind of thing. But also you can practice it and learn it. I've seen it happen. I've seen people, go from, not being very good and they just put in the hours, put in the time, and, they developed and have, really viable careers right now. So it's both. I think that's a muscle that you build. But for me, a lot of it is innate. For some reason, when I look at situations and things, I'm inspired to either, make a joke about it or infuse it into some kind of story or write something like, I might write a musical parody about something. Like when there was this whole Susu debacle back in when people were in all these blessing circles, there was this popular song, Jerusalem, and I just wrote a parody to it about the Susu money or whatever, and it went viral, like 400,000 views, because other Trinidadians were watching at this thing, watching this phenomenon going on. But, I articulated it in a way that people identified with it and made it kind of funny and fun. So yeah, it's part, intuitive and intuition and that kind of thing. And a lot of it is actually, building that muscle as well.
Building those reps. But if these are the things that are innate and kind of intuitive to you that you're working on to get better, who are some of the people that you look at and say, hey, I like where that person coming from. I like that style. Let me take a little piece of this, not copying jokes, but a little bit of the influence, a little bit of the energy into what it is I do. Who are some of those people for you?
Yeah, so as far as comedy, I've looked at, so I'll say the international people first because they are less important. I would say like, the Dave Chappelle's and the Cat Williams and Ellen DeGeneres and, so many American comedians. I've looked at them and really appreciated their work. But locally for me, I think when I saw Errol Fabian perform for the first time live, we were on a cast with him. We were hired as the cast for a night for a show at Residence. And, you know, they said, hey, by the way, Errol Fabian is going to pass you and do some jokes. And we're like, okay, you know, Errol Fabian is one of the older heads and he's going to come and tell some jokes, no problem. The reception this man got, the way he just was in control of the room, the way how he just was on top of his game, it was amazing to see. He is a titan on stage. So he was, I think he was like the first, well, not the first, but he was the biggest. So Errol Fabian, definitely, I think he's amazing. He's the king, in my opinion, the king of Caribbean comedy. And then there would be Kivo, who people may know less than Errol Fabian, but Kivo is a comedian. He does videos online, but also he's a live stand-up actor. When I saw him for the first time, that's when I first came into shows. He was approaching this with such a professionalism, and he was so, you know, capable and efficient as an entertainer. He was in total control of the room. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't trying a thing like a lot of the other comics. So I really respected what Kivo did, and that really made me feel like, yeah, man, you could do this thing, and this is where you could go with it. Since then, I've had the opportunity to observe and get to know other, you know, people like Rachel Price, who is somebody who just, for no other reason than seeing you and observing you, would reach out to you and pour into you positivity all the time, try to get you opportunities, try to lift you up, try to let you, you know, get rid of any imposter syndrome. She's just that kind of positive person that's just constantly pouring in. So I've been very fortunate, you know, Rody, very, you know, there are local people who I look at, things that they've done, I get inspiration from it, I'm moved by it, and I want to also, you know, extend those same things to other people.
That we let that breathe for a little bit and we take a short break. We are speaking with comedian, actor, writer, poet, and so much more, Kevin Soyer. We return after this. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are having a conversation with Kevin Soyer. And one of the things, just before you took that break, I like the fact that you said, okay, well, those influences that are larger in scale in terms of reach are less important to you. And you're looking at those that are closer to home. What do you feel about making space in terms of like there's this younger cohort? And I like how you described Kivo is almost as though he's a scientist. So he knows exactly what he's going to do, these elements that he very methodical with it, although it doesn't come across that way, but you can see that this thing, the constructs of what he's dealing with, they have this sort of form. The fact that, even looking at the fact that he's an educator, Stefan is an educator, as this film, I believe.
Right.
And so you had to be bright to tell jokes in my mind.
Yeah, it's comedians, I tell people, well, some.
But what do you think about this younger cohort that is coming up and making space? So there are those, like you have the OGs like Errol Fabian, Rachel Price that you would have mentioned. But what is it about this younger cohort that is making space, looking out for each other, kind of sharing each other's work, talking to each other as well, sharing experiences? What's your feeling on not just them themselves, but making that space?
Yes, I mean, and I have a really great example as well. But we are really fortunate right here in Trinidad and Tobago for some reason, and it's like no other industry. The comedy industry within Trinidad and Tobago is like anything else, because for some reason, you know, there's no fighting, there's no bickering or crab and barrel mentality. For the most part, everybody is really passionate about the art form and trying to move it forward together. So we've been really embraced by, you know, as we say, the old heads, you know, these people who are legends and icons. They've really embraced us, and we work alongside them, and there's so much camaraderie all the time. You know, Kenneth Super Sad, Nuts Landed, Drunken Saint, like all of these other comedians, they are really, they embrace us, and you know, they're really our colleagues, and you know, and also within this, as I said, the younger crop of comedians, we are extremely fortunate. Very early on, we kind of banded together. There's a comedian by the name of Simidi Trini. She had the foresight to kind of reach out to the younger live stand-up acts and get us in a group as part of a show that she was doing. And so we built these relationships that have really flourished. So you have like Kes Ramsey, Junior Lee, who is just killing it on a major scale right now. Kwame Weeks, Loris Lee saying, I don't want to start calling names without, you know, we'll call everybody name. But we have this group. So for the most part, a lot of us are part of this group called Laugh on the Ave. It's a company that we have formed. We are partners in it, and we produce shows together, and we really try to move the industry forward that way. And through having this company now, we get to not just create a platform for ourselves or expand on the platform that these older comedians would have created for us, but now we're able to bring them in and expose them to our audience and, expose our audience to them. So like on Saturday, we had our comedy show called The Big Comedy Show. And at this show, we brought out Larry Joseph. And a lot of our audience who follow us around, they haven't seen Larry Joseph. I mean, they would have seen him on television like we all have. And he was like a trailblazer who showed us what was possible. But we had the opportunity to not just platform him, but then at the end of it, we wanted to award him. So we gave him an award that we call the Big Stone Award for paving the way. Yeah, the first annual Big Stone Award. And he was so moved to tears, and he gave this speech, and it was so, he said, in all his years of, his career, he has never witnessed an audience stand on their feet and wait for him to speak. And it was such a pivotal moment for him and all these other younger comedians there to pay homage to him and everything. So we're really, really fortunate we have that here. It's a flourishing industry, and the players are all really working together to move it forward. So I'm really excited and motivated by that.
There's actually Simide Trini's last effort in Queen's Hall, which is where I would have seen your set and saying, that boy, man.
For some reason, she brings out the big boys to her shows. So what is she doing? How is she getting you? Simi brings out some very influential audience members.
I'm very happy to say that we pay for the tickets.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because that's a big thing too. But what you're saying in terms of like having that cumulative effect and coming together as opposed to that crab and barrel, it reminds me of a conversation I was listening to Andre Iguodala speaking about in terms of like collective economics and how it is you move something forward as a collective, as opposed to, okay, well, one person move forward, which means that people behind, which means that there could be this toing and throwing and tugging and pulling. But with that in mind, though, how important are new media, and I say platforms, because the way that your target audience, the people who would be looking at you, may not be as exposed to individuals like Larry Joseph. Some people might also say the fact that there were less eyes that way meant that you could test out certain things and say, all right, I like how if I do it this way, it works a little more. The audience feels it, the punchline is a little crisper.
Yeah.
What are some of the pros and cons and the new platforms that you're dealing with?
So I have such a respect for social media, the reach, and what it has done for a lot of my colleagues. Well, it did for me as well for a long time. For a period of time, I was doing social media, comedy, and I had, this niche following who were really, really passionate. And so I know about that, and how much you have to feed it. You have to feed that machine. But I've seen people who have stuck with it and been so diligent with what they put out and so moved by them, like Certified Samson, Junior Lee, as I said, this new guy, Kyle, who people, these people are doing almost daily videos and building these followings, and they are really, really creative. They are really, really diligent and consistent, and it pays off for them. Their following grows. And the thing with that is that, yeah, with a greater following, then you have more eyes on you. You're able to bring out more of an audience. You're able to sell tickets. You're able to fill seats. So I have such a respect for that new form of media. There is also, and there's always this conversation going on within the industry, the ability to back it up or perform live. So there still is a need to be able to deliver, even though you can bring people out, you have to be able to deliver. So there is much to be said for that comedian who just hits the casinos or the little bars, the restaurants, the small shows, and is constantly working on their craft all the time. They might not be visible. Most of the country may not know them or think of them when they talk about comedians. They might only go to the social media comedians, but there are these comedians who are always honing their craft in the background. And when it comes to live performance, these are the people that stand out because they put in the work and they're able to, and hopefully at some point they do get the audiences and they get that reach and everything as well. But I myself and all, always thinking, okay, how can I utilize social media? Because it is a very important tool and things are changing and we can't approach things the same way as it would have been approached in the past. We have to adapt. So.
And that word utilizing, if you utilize comedy, is it a matter of dealing Is it a matter of coping? Is it a matter of bringing that light in that you said that your family would have been dealing with when you were going through that year and 3 month long process? And if so, is there a chance that sometimes you look, nah, boy, that's funny, but that kind of dark? The way how sometimes you'd say, you crack a joke and ask too soon?
All the time. I do that. I do that all the time. That's kind of like part of my brand, is that I bring these things that are, for the most part, heavy and dark. That I find a lot of the trauma could be entertaining. There's ways to make trauma entertaining, and I have had my fair share of trauma, fair share of trauma. So I'm able to infuse that into things, and sometimes even unconsciously, whether I'm writing like for a television something or a stage something, even if it's not particularly supposed to be comedy, there will still be this part where this character uses humor to deal with or deflect or understand or communicate something that is tough or dark or traumatic. So that's just something that I always do. And yes, so people definitely walk away from my shows. A piece of feedback I always get is that it was dark, it was funny, or it was dark and I learned, and it made us feel comfortable to laugh and to go along with the story and that kind of thing. Because we feel our lives are filled with so much serious, so much we up to our necks in serious all the time. So we don't need, if I'm putting on a show or my colleagues are putting on a show, that's not a place where you need to be coming and feeling more that you could come and put everything down. We could laugh at it. And as Trinidadians, we know about laughing at serious things. There right now, as much as people are, hankering down and waiting for the weather, there's going to be 10 memes when you open up your timeline. There's going to be memes, there's going to be all kind of statuses that are humorous about the weather right now, because that's just how we are. So, yeah.
And even like waiting for the weather to subside and looking to the future for that, what is in the future for you? What's in store? What are some of those things that you're looking to in this last minute that we have?
Right. Oh, well, I had my first show last year, my first independent show, Therapy. And it was a sold out success, thankfully. And I'm having another one this year on October the 5th at Queen's Hall. So I'm looking forward to that. And I want to continue to build this vehicle where I get to platform, my new sets of comedians, put them on, also make space for persons with disabilities like myself. Because, when people came to my show, the first one I made sure it was, first of all, I want to have accessibility included. I want to have diverse cast included. I want to have, when you walk through the door, like, thankfully, my dear, beautiful friends, Michael and Mayana, were the first people that anybody met. And these are wheelchair users. These are persons with disabilities at the door, taking their tickets, whatever it is. I have a sister who has Down syndrome, who models and, who could help out in the back and that kind of thing. Like, I want to make a space for, diverse creatives to be able to be platformed, as well as to continue to move comedy and stuff forward. So my own ventures, like, live shows, television, theater, movies, who knows, and I want to tour as a comedian. So all those things. Sorry for rambling so much, but yeah, it's a lot I want to do. I want to use what I do have to do what I can. That's my mission.
Nice. And how do people find you? How do people follow what it is you're doing so that they can be reminded of things like the October 5 concert and everything else between?
Yes, you can follow me on social media, Kevin Soyer, or at KVNSYR, which is my name with all the vowels. So yeah, you can look me up on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever, and follow along for the journey.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you for doing what it is you're doing and in expanding one possibilities of thought, and then also platforms for people to be themselves and see each other being themselves. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.